Hey, it's Unique History Channel. Today we're going to be doing a reading from My Struggle by Vladimir ZHIRINOVSKY, and we're reading Part 5, Political Pluralism. Not being a strong, athletic boy, I sometimes took offense in my childhood when I was teased. Yet I also have good memories of striking up a friendship in pioneer camp, winning honors at the university for awards for community service, for my part in the participations for the Congress of Peace-Loving Forces and the International Youth Festival. I received an award. I thought I was excluded from the festival itself. Of course, I have not received any state awards, nor do I have any scholarly works or doctorate. After graduating from the Institute for Asian and African Countries, I did receive offers of admission from 5 graduate programs in philology, sociology, and philosophy, and could have advanced along on this path. But I was not especially drawn to the academic life, which requires persistence and intense reading. Instead, I was drawn to real life, to what was happening today beyond my window at home or outside the trolley in which I rode. The vital present, that drew my attention and eventually led me to politics. I took great pleasure in creating and actively participating in a new political party. Many others have made a similar commitment, which requires so much effort that some, perhaps, had to give up work that they enjoy. In my case, I didn't like my work. And in creating and participating in a political party was switching to what I truly enjoyed. For me, the most important thing is the ability not only to express myself, but attempt to propagate my ideas, which the most basic of which is pluralism everywhere, a shorthand phrase for my program. We shouldn't dictate, for example, that children be raised in boarding schools, or that people work in factories, serve in the army, or study Marxism. I am sickened by such totalitarianism and prefer instead a multiplicity of views and pluralism. Democracy, property rights, the national question, statehood, and education. I am, at the same time, an advocate of harsh measures when it comes to crime, separatism, destruction of the economy, and other social structures. We have to make a distinction between an advocate of totalitarianism and an advocate of democracy whose approach is sometimes hardline. Today, for example, hardline measures are clearly necessary in so-called hotspots where people are being killed on every street corner. In such circumstance, how can a democratic approach stop violence? Quite clearly, such situations require forceful measures. In forming my party, I was able to express my ideas clearly and comprehensibly to many citizens of our country to gain supporters, but my political views can only be implemented through the electoral victory. Nevertheless, a party can have a positive effect, even in opposition, if effects of its ideas are copied by the ruling structures and put into effect. Indeed, this is how some of the ideas of the Liberal Democratic Party have been introduced. Today, there are many parties in Russia, along with many civil movements and groups. These arise and disintegrate, creating various unions and coalitions. This process is normal. In the end, I believe, will leave us with 5 or 6 leading parties. Many people know nowadays, especially who didn't join the Communist Party under the former one-party state, and were left in a condition of political starvation and are hungry to express their political opinions. Having no competitors, the one-party system offers citizens no chance to participate in the election of different political forces. Indeed, the one-party army exists as a cover for the dictatorial forces in power. To affect the masses, it must maintain an apparat. We once had a one-party regime that existed purely in the interest of the state. Its goal was to build communism and spread the ideology beyond our country's borders. Its second mistake. If all the help of the Communist Party leadership provided foreign countries had remained instead in the USSR, ours would have been a rich, developed, cultured country even under one-party rule. Nevertheless, in spite of our defects, we still have many accomplishments. The multi-party system is useful because it avoids prolonged political experimentation by ending the rule of any party that squanders its resources. The multi-party system, when all the pluses and minuses are weighed, is therefore this reason better than the one-party system because it's always better to have a choice. Here's a simple example. Imagine that you have entered into a sexual relationship with a woman you love and that you've renounced all others. If the love between you and her is pure and deep, such a commitment is fine. What if the love is neither deep nor pure, or for once dry? becomes one-sided. Do you put your life on hold for the sake of your monogamous idea? In fact, the vast majority of men and women have not one but several sexual partners in a lifetime. The same in politics. To become attached to one party, one idea, to one perspective can have decading effect. A multiplicity of ideas, like a bouquet of flowers, makes a country brighter, far more than so a single flower. Variety likewise enhances the attractiveness of the garden. An orchard of the birch trees with white trunks is tiresome compared to the one that has a mixture of trees. Variety of weather, spring, fall, rain, wind, cloudiness, sunshine, is more enjoyable than constant temperatures of 35 to 40 degrees. Childhood, youth, adulthood, middle age, and old age. The decrepitude preceding death. This variety is also a fact of personal life. 10 years of adolescence are followed by 10 years of young adulthood, which each decade brings a different kind of happiness, knowledge, and life. A mode of expression, political life should be similarly varied. In politics, it is desirable to stick to one idea. A family tradition of voting for one particular party is fine, even if the political preference is included from childhood. To be a follower of a particular party is a positive tendency if the involvement occurs within a multi-party framework, in which there exists a choice It is similar in sports, where a young boy may for some reason be attracted to a particular team, say to Spartak, which he will support win or lose. He will follow their games, learn about the coaches, the players, but if Spartak were the only team, there could be no fans, because a team gains particular identity and wins the loyalty of its supporters only through comparison and competition. It is no competition, no trophy, no championship, no winners, only Spartak. Changing the coach of Spartak, the only team, is unlikely to inspire enthusiasm. It is the same with politics, with having a general secretary of the Communist Party whose post is filled by successor. We do need pluralism, even in our personal lives. Same idea. We need a common ground and adherence to a single idea. Having an anonymous nature doesn't give the person the right to marry every year. Even polygamy, as practiced by Muslims, has its positive side. It's part of pluralism in human relations. For example, in the Caucasus in the East, people, men included, greet each other with a kiss, a custom not observed among Russian boys and men. In this particular practice, the norm in Yerevan, Tbilisi, and Baku demonstrate the different forms of human relations that are typical under pluralism. The same pluralism is a characteristic of politics. In some countries, disputes between political opponents are settled by murder, car bombings, and terrorist attacks. Elsewhere, in France, Holland, and Denmark, various parties defend and debate their positions in the most cultured terms with no anger or violence and no cause for smothering the opposition. Pluralism is a part of all human relations. Every party is a political group with a leader, internal laws, and desire to achieve goals. In some cases, by any means possible. Once in power, it sometimes seeks to hold its ground and has little tolerance for opponents and leading to confrontation. Parties on occasion may elect dishonest and dishonorable leaders who are not always patriots, but who use their power solely for their own enrichment. There is always the danger that a party may win support, and he must be elected by pandering to the basest instincts of population, turn of events, not ruled by multiplicity of parties. Such a situation, for example, developed in Germany with Hitler's National Socialist Party. It was Hitler's leadership, the qualities that lured him into the brown spectrum of irrational, aggressive political life, resulting in violence. In the beginning, his party was simply one contender among many. In the end, it controlled the repressive apparatus of the state. Personality has also always played a role in history, whether positive or negative. Under Peter the Great, many reforms were instituted. Yet for all that, St. Petersburg was practically built on the bones of serfs, who died rising a city out of the marshes. Everyone praised Stalin to his face when he was still alive. Even today, many bristle at the suggestion that they knew about his atrocities. When Tsar Nicholas II abdicated, St. Petersburg rejoiced, nobility, workers, landowners, ministers, and leaders of parties, at the end of monarchy, at the end of autocracy. 70 years later, monarchist parties argued that a monarchy might be good for Russia. In February 1917, however, everyone was jubilant over the Tsar's abdication. No one took to the streets with the slogan, "Restore autocracy." On the contrary, they rejoiced, and abdication sparked a holiday for Russia in light of subsequent Russian history. Some now consider the abdication almost a tragedy. History consists of impossible twists that we must constantly reevaluate. Instead, historical events often have a dual nature. Tsar Peter I is remembered for his victories, but they were won on the bodies of many victims. The hasty Europeanization of Russia brought civilization at the cost of the destruction of the patriarchal Russian family, the introduction of drunkenness, smoking, and other European vices. Stalin's rule closed off the country from the rest of the world, and during that time, venereal disease was practically unknown, and mortality was practiced on a higher level. When I went to school from 1953 to 1964, all the girls in my class were virgins. A girl who gave a reason to suspect that she would have become sexually active was regarded with disapproval. Girls married as virgins, making for stronger family ties, and until the age of 17 or 18, we were pure and clear-thinking children. No one abused drugs, no one sniffed anything. We drank very little alcohol, and that mainly with our parents during holidays. Drunkenness was an idea that never entered our heads. Even the word restaurant held a bad connotation, as a place to which only the very bad sort went. This thinking was both provincial and positive. Every age has its pluses and minuses, and our aim should be to preserve what is good. In Tsarist Russia, there was some good: merchants, noblemen, workers, bureaucrats, the intelligentsia, sound moral values, and the widespread practice of the religion. Territorial divisions among the system of insurance and medical care. We should have preserved the good elements of that age instead of destroying everything associated with it. We should never begin from square one, as we've done several times this century, tearing everything down to the ground and starting with nothing. For example, we now have a market economy, but what's wrong with administrative economy? Why did we destroy what we had? Let's create different legal conditions for labor, permit the maximum degree of worker independence, and make full use of the rental system. But why is it necessary to make everything grind to a halt? Why put a stop to financing? Why interrupt communications? This wicked policy is taking place because the Mensheviks are now in power. In 1917, the Bolsheviks came to power. In 1991, the Mensheviks were the same political party, whether you call it the Russian Social Democratic Workers' Party, the All-Russian Communist Party, Bolsheviks, and the Russian Communist Party, Bolsheviks, or the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. It's all the same Communist Party. And so the struggle for power continues. Maybe it's the Russian character to have an economy in which 70% of the property belongs to the state, with the private sector owning about only 20%. Why not use this assumption as a starting point rather than destroy the entire state sectors by privatization and convert everything into private property? How many times have we shifted from one side to another during the course of the 20th century? Russia's golden age was the 19th century. Everything then progressed gradually. Decembrists entered the scene, failed and departed, and some sent to Siberia and others put to death. Serfdom was abolished in due time, and although reforms were incomplete, new reformers soon came onto the scene. Alexander II, followed by Witt and Stolypin. Slowly Russia was turned around. By 1913, we achieved prosperity by European and worldwide measures of a 4.5 scale. But instead of staying with this 4, we adopted a 0 option and now are struggling back to a 3. The economy is being ruined with people dying daily. Civil war is raging openly in the Baltics and Ukraine. The war is a secret in Tajikistan, and the Caucasus is out in the open. It has spread to Russia herself, destroying us from inside, and its secret from this war is latent skills such as underground fire and a coal mine. Shale, coal, and peat can burn underground for years before erupting, but when it erupts, watch out. We need pluralism, openness, tranquility. We mustn't torment our motherland for any longer. She is tired and worn out by all the naming and renaming. The USSR is an artificial name, as is the Confederation of Independent States. Our state was already given a historical name. Geographical concept: Russia, Eurasian continent of 22 million cubic kilometers, belonging to everyone who lives on its territory. It was a land washed bounded by its northern border by the Arctic Ocean and Pacific in the far east and the Atlantic via the Black and Baltic Seas in the west. In the future, after our march to the south, the Indian Ocean will lap at our southern shores. Our country that has existed for 1,000 years shouldn't be divided by national borders. We do not want to divide France into Gaul and Britain, or Spain into Catalonia, or Spain proper and the Basque Country. Indeed, most nations could be similarly divided. Italy could be divided into Sicily and Northern Italy. Triola be given to Austria, Trieste to Slovenia. Corsica and the overseas colonies could be taken away from France. The whole world is divisible at the price of inedible bloodshed and repression. We have to understand that only a single country with the name Russia can exist, but it will be a country without the suppression of different ideas and population groups. Without any political dictates, without a monopoly in the education or culture, pluralism should exist in everything. If not everyone understands the meaning of pluralism, let's use the word diversity. Let's use the word expression. Free prices instead of liberalization of the prices. In place of privatization, let's use our own term. Denationalization of property. That is, its transformation into personal and private ownership, into property belonging to the workers' collective, and so on. Why do we need alien words like vouchers? A word that sounds like a barking dog. Check or coupon would be more appropriate. That is, let's have fewer foreign words. Of course, avoiding foreign words entirely is impossible. We should make united by a single language without making our mother tongue into an unrecognizable Esperanto. Today, we are forced to explain the meaning of these non-Russian words to our children. Entire phrases on television and radio remain a mystery to our elderly. Politics is an unavoidable part of our life that we encounter every day. A baby is born into the world and a maturing word and taken care of by the state. An old man dies and ends up in a morgue or a cemetery with his last breath with the state. Between a birth and death certificate, which both are state documents, everyone has ongoing contact with the state that ranges through education, marriage, church membership, and other function that takes place within state framework. No matter where we turn, we are connected directly or indirectly to institutions and functions that are part of our state and society in which we live. In the earliest stage of human development, there was nature, fire in a cave, and an animal hide, but no state. At our current level of development, we cannot escape elements connected to the structure of the state system that is defined and determined, for most part, by political parties. Sometimes the parties, which consist of people who hold a particular set of beliefs about the state, have different names and leaders, but not different beliefs. The existence of these separate parties, when even they have a similar agenda, provides competition, prevents the formation of larger dominant political groups. Survival in politics on the whole is achieved through interaction of political parties. An artist or writer can work alone, but even such credentials are connected to the state. The writer, for example, needs a publisher or distribution network for his books, a venue for meeting with readers, all of which join him in some society and the state. A similar connection exists between the politician and a system of political parties, which permit individuals to join together to express their varying political views. Political parties have their own particularities, internal laws, and particular kind of relations. A party requires central and local organizations. It needs a charter, founding documents, a program, periodic meetings, congresses, plenary sessions, and supreme councils. Its activities take a variety of forms: meetings, demonstrations, protests, pickets, press relations, factional politics. There are competitions and champions among its members, and the equivalent in athletics of an Olympic game, practice sessions, regional matches, and so forth. Generations of members come and go, as do leaders and shifts in policy and strategy. A party has its own metabolism. It can grow, depreciate, or become rejuvenated. It can shift to the left or to the right, or towards greater liberalism or greater conservatism, towards modernization or radicalism. These shifts are part of political life, which constantly offers something fresh. To me, it's also interesting and never boring. A political party is much like school. New people are always arriving. Older party members sometimes leave only after they have fallen ill. Some leaders linger too long than they should, and sometimes for the better, because an ongoing sense of continuity is preserved. There are also parties in which the leadership changes every 2 or 3 years, in which there is a joint or collective leadership, with variations occurring from party to party and country to country. the endless variety is the bouquet of political life. I am entirely satisfied with my life. I have accomplished all I desired. I had a political party, and I have been a candidate for president. Today, the entire world knows of me, not to mention my entire country, from Kaliningrad to Kamchatka. In Iraq, I am virtually hailed as Iraqi's people's closest friend. In Finland, on the other hand, they fear me as an enemy. The Poles are not particularly fond of me, but I have good relations with the Germans. Certain political forces in France and South Africa view me with sympathy. Among the Russian communities of Australia, Spain, and Germany, I enjoy good relations. Indeed, I have supporters and opponents in all countries of the world. I have become famous. I have personally met with Saddam Hussein for 2 years after the Gulf War, didn't receive a single foreigner, let alone a Russian. He turned away deputies of the Russian parliament, leaders of various parties, and journalists, but received me alone in November 1992 when we had a 4-hour conversation in his palace in Baghdad. It was an interesting trip. I took a plane to Amman and traveled 14 hours to the Syrian desert to Baghdad. There I spent a week meeting with the country's top leadership. On Saturday, November 21st, I met with Saddam Hussein, who listened to me and asked questions. I then traveled to Libya to meet with Gaddafi, another leader of the Arab world. I planned trips to South Africa, Australia, Spain, and India. I've seen the whole world, traveled by invitation to scores of countries to meet with party leaders, to speak in parliaments. I have been to United Nations, to New York, and in Geneva. These travels have given me intimate knowledge of the world, which is useful and necessary for the leader of a political party. Many of our party leaders have literally never left the country. They have a weak command of their native tongue, and to say nothing of a foreign language. With assurance I can say, as a political leader, I have achieved a place in international politics. Being the leader of a center-right party in Russia, I have been included among 8 leaders in the world's rightist political parties and stood side by side with leaders from Germany, France, Italy, and Britain. My name is mentioned in handbooks, and there are six articles of various intelligence agencies throughout the world, and I am mentioned in embassy dispatches and correspondence among the highest level bureaucrats and the reports to the world's leading countries. Okay, thank you.